It is great to be with you in mind and in spirit. Unusual circumstances pulled me away from Florida at the last moment on what I think is an important and very interesting mission here in the European Union, and I will talk to you a little bit more about that at the end of our presentation, when I think we'll have a better basis to understand what I am doing here, when perhaps I should be there. I would like to explore the fundamental questions and scientific breakthroughs that shed light on the key questions: what is consciousness, where does it come from, and what are the limits of human potential? But to really understand what consciousness is better than it has been understood for the last century or more, it's really necessary to take a few moments to understand the latest breakthroughs in our understanding of the universe. And by understanding the universe more fundamentally, I think it'll become much more clear what consciousness is and what is its central role in the universe in which we live. It'll be necessary for me quickly to summarize 300 years of scientific research, which I will try to do on a single slide, which really shows at a glance the hierarchical structure of natural law revealed by modern science. This chart shows the structure of the universe from its unified foundation at the basis of this chart to its diversified expressions at the top of this chart. This chart shows the hierarchical structure of natural law from fundamentally unified to superficially diversified. Progress in theoretical physics during the past century has systematically explored deeper levels of intelligence in nature, from the macroscopic to the microscopic, from the superficial to the profound, from the macroscopic to the molecular to the atomic to the nuclear to subnuclear levels of nature's functioning, the electroweak unified scale, the grand unified scale, and ultimately shown at the basis of this chart, at the foundation of the universe itself, the discovery of the unified field of all the laws of nature in the context of what is called the superstring. The latest breakthroughs in modern physics, the latest breakthroughs in modern mathematics, set theory and the Kripke-Joyal semantics of the topos, the latest theories of chemistry in the transition state, all these disciplines of modern science are revealing the fundamental truth of the unity of life. I remember it's been about 15 years since several of my professors were awarded the Nobel Prize for discovering that two of the superficially diverse forces of nature were ultimately one. The force of electromagnetism, responsible for light, for color, for chemistry, for digestion, for virtually every phenomenon that we see around us, with the exception of gravity. This force of electromagnetism and the force of radioactivity, separate forces at the nuclear scale, are seen as two superficially diverse aspects of one unified reality, the so-called unified electroweak field, which reveals itself at distance scales 100 times smaller than the atomic nucleus. 10 million times smaller than the atomic nucleus is the grand unified scale of nature's functioning, where three of the four forces of nature, the strong, weak, and electromagnetic forces, become one. And 10,000 times more fundamental still is the unified field of all the laws of nature, the so-called heterotic superstring field in the language of modern science. And these unified field theories locate a single, universal, unified field of intelligence in nature, the unified fountainhead of all the diverse streams of natural law governing the universe at every level, the unified source of all the four forces of nature, all the particles in which they act, the quarks and leptons in their bound states as nucleons, atoms, molecules, trees, planets, galaxies, the entire cosmos, and everything in it is just the manifestation of this universal field of intelligence at the foundation of nature. And that's what this chart summarizes. If I could show for a moment this mathematical formula at the top of this chart, which you probably cannot see very well, and you're probably just as glad. At the top of this chart is the mathematical expression of this fundamental unity. It's called the Lagrangian of the superstring, And it's just this simple expression at the top of this chart, from which, as this chart suggests, you can sequentially derive every other formula of physics, the entire discipline of physics, quantum mechanics, nuclear physics, solid-state physics, the entire field of chemistry and biology, earth and planetary science, astrophysics, cosmology. Everything that has been discovered about the universe through modern science for the last 3 centuries can be systematically derived from this single compact expression, the self-interacting dynamics of unity at the basis of life's diversity, and the sequential process of what is called symmetry breaking, through which fundamental unity gives rise step by step to the emergence of surface diversity, starting with grand unification and electroweak unification, and the nuclear scale, and the atomic scale, and molecular scale, and macroscopic scales, earth and planetary, astrophysical, and cosmological. The entire universe can be sequentially unfolded from this compact expression of knowledge that is not merely my discovery, if in case that was the interpretation of my wonderful introduction by Duncan, but has really become the central focus of modern theoretical physics, and indeed, increasingly, the other scientific disciplines. One of the profound successes of unified field theory is the extraordinary ability to unify the physics of the very large, in particular the force of gravity, with quantum mechanics. Gravity has resisted quantization for 50 years. And it was the very concept of gravity as a separate force that was the logical error. The very concept of separate forces is ultimately, mathematically and logically, inconsistent. The solution to come up with a mathematically self-consistent theory of the world was to abandon the notion of separate forces and separate particles and unite them all in the context of one holistic entity called the unified field or superstring field. Just in short, very short, the way this unification occurs is that there is one universal ocean of intelligence, the so-called second quantized superstring field. But this field of existence percolates strings, like ginger ale percolates effervescent bubbles. These little strings, which emerge from this ocean of existence, are really fundamentally of one type. There is only one expressed entity in the universe. But because these little strings can vibrate in different ways, like elastic rubber bands, vibrating to the left, vibrating to the right, vibrating this way and this way, you can enumerate the number of vibrational possibilities for a string moving in 10 dimensions of space, which, by the way, is the number of dimensions in the universe in which we live, even though we only see 3 of those 10 dimensions of space plus 1 dimension of time. For a technical reason we could go into later if there's time. When you enumerate the possible vibrational states of a superstring, you discover that the string vibrations correspond precisely to what we used to call gravity, or, if it's vibrating a different way, to what we used to call electromagnetism, or if it's vibrating in a different way, what we used to call quarks and leptons, and so on and so forth. All the particles and forces that comprise the universe are just the different vibrational states of the superstring, just the expressions of this unified field like waves on an ocean. These theories are extremely successful and again provide the only logically consistent quantized theory of gravity, forcing scientists, even who were initially reluctant, to accept the superstring and unification as the only possible logically consistent conclusion that we are living in a unified universe.